What's up, everyone? This is Noa Dalzell here for a You Got Boston live episode here to answer all your Celtics questions, joined by my father, Jon Dalzell, who has been on the show a couple of times now. Hopefully, he'll be able to provide some insight, if you'll allow him to, about the Celtics with 21 games left in the season. We're here fresh off of a win over the Denver Nuggets after the Celtics snapped a 2-game losing streak. Title of this episode is Biggest Obstacles to the Title Defense. So we will talk about other teams in the league. Actually, I haven't had a chance to talk to my dad about this. I'm curious for what you think about the Cavs, the Thunder, the Lakers, and just kind of the other teams in the mix. So we can talk about that. We can also talk about any other questions that you guys have. I've literally done like a post-game show yesterday. I just did a Bleacher Report show. So I've been talking for days. So any questions you have, I'm happy to answer. About this team, also can share, was just at an event with Nemish Keita. We were talking a little bit about how hard Joe is on him, which was pretty funny. So we can talk about that as well. But Dad, I'll let you introduce yourself. Can you give the viewers just a little bit of context on you? What are your credentials that allow you to be here? And then we'll jump right into questions.
Okay, I'm Noah's dad, and I played high school, college basketball, played overseas for 16 years. I was primarily a three-point shooter, so I relate to the three-point shot very much. I always say that the three-point shot kind of saved my career because I was shooting three-pointers most of my life, and they were only counting as two. So that was a big thing for me. And, and I think the evolution of the NBA game is really, with the three-point shot is really something beautiful. And I don't buy into all the haters of that style of game. But yeah, I think the NBA is up and coming, and I'm a big fan. I coached in my life, as you know. Played a lot. Still love playing basketball. Play almost every night, as long as the guys will have me. And that's it. And love being on your show, Nan.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll jump right into it. Right now, Celtics are in the middle of a 7-game homestand. They lost the first one versus the Cavs, won against the Nuggets. They got a bunch of teams coming into town. The most exciting one that I think everybody wants to see is the Lakers with Luka. They've been on fire. They come in on Saturday. Tickets to get in are $500 just to get into TD Garden. So literally, I was saying this yesterday on our postgame show, but I don't believe that that trade was rigged by the NBA. I don't think that's like a real thing. But if it was, I understand why people think that, because it has benefited the league so much from a viewership standpoint, from an attendance standpoint, just like ticket prices. Everybody's tuning in to see Luka and LeBron together. So they'll be in town on Saturday. I would imagine they'll both play, and we'll kind of get a chance to see what a potential, and I don't think this is my prediction, but what a potential finals series would look like between the Lakers and the Celtics. So we'll see.
And the Mavericks have disappeared.
Oh my gosh. Well, I honestly feel terrible because
they don't even have a team anymore.
Yeah, not only do they lose Luka and the fan base is in shambles, but also Anthony Davis comes back and literally gets hurt for an indefinite period of time in the first game. So it was just poetic how terrible things have gone on that side. And that they've played hard, that team, but then they trade away Quentin Grimes. I don't know if you saw this. Quentin Grimes goes off for 44 points, career high 44 points in Philadelphia. So now they're saying you traded away Luka, Quentin Grimes, and didn't re-sign Jalen Brunson. I can imagine you traded away Porzingis for nothing. They've gotten rid of everything they had. So
incredible.
I get the frustrations. But let's just start. I'm going to start at the top here because we'll talk about obstacles of the title defense, but I'm just going to go through, if there are any questions, we can just go right through them. And great to see some familiar faces here. Fitting question here from a username titled the G League fan. It said, it felt strange to see Anton Watson get cut so soon. I feel like most second-round picks on two ways get at least a full season, so pretty surprising. Has Brad said anything yet to the media? So Anton Watson was out of Gonzaga, has been playing with Maine. He has literally spent no time in Boston up until yesterday. I swear there's been a handful of games that he's come up to Boston for. Yesterday he's there for warm-ups. I'm posting videos of him going through warm-ups with the other two ways. He sits on the bench. I don't know this for sure, but he did seem a little bit subdued on the bench. He didn't cheer that hard. He seemed a little bit to be I was actually noticing that. He might just be his demeanor. I don't really know him, but an hour after the game ended, Celtics announced that they waived Anton Watson, and in turn they signed this other guy, Miles Norris, who I'm not going to talk too much about here, but you can check out my previous podcast episode on You Got Boston. I had on the Memphis Hustle color commentator who is much more familiar with this game than I am, but He's a better shooter than Anton. He's also that height. I actually saw him walking by the practice facility today. He's listed as 6'7". I would guess he's like 6'9", just based off of the fact that I'm around NBA players all the time. But clearly this guy caught their eye and they just wanted to sign him. But it is kind of unusual to cut a two-way player that was drafted this early on. So I talked to Nimi about it today. He was like, it's kind of part of the business. It's just kind of how it goes. But they must have just felt like this guy's not going to ever contribute to the Celtics. That's my interpretation of it. And Brad hasn't spoken to us yet. The last time he talked to us was right after they traded away Jaden Springer. And he was like, it was hard, but we're going to sign somebody soon. And then an hour later, they signed Torrey Craig. So, they moved. All these moves are connected. They all have a reason why he does certain things. But yeah, in this case, I think they must have just seen more potential for this guy that was competing against the Maine Celtics and was actually 9 of 18 in 2 games from 3 against Maine, which is a little weird, but that's just I don't know if you have anything to add there. Probably not, but okay. So why don't we talk? Tom here is asking about just kind of the next 5 games of the homestand. We have the Thunder game and we have the Lakers game. So I'll use that as a jumping point to just wonder, like, which of these teams have stood out to you most as far as the most likely to knock off the Celtics here. And I'm gonna just throw out the Cavs and the Thunder as the top 2 right now, because if you look at the standings, those 2 teams are both having historic regular seasons. The Thunder right now are on pace to have the biggest point differential in NBA history. That's where they're on pace in any regular season. So they're having an insane season. I think people are a little bit overlooking them because they're young. But between those 2 teams, which one you think is a kind of a bigger threat? And are you particularly concerned about either versus the Celtics?
I'm not particularly concerned about either one. I don't think that they have the players with the playoff experience to make it through. The Celtics clearly have a huge advantage that they've already been through the whole playoffs several years in a row, finally getting to the championship last year and taking the championship. I don't think that they have the experience. I just think it won't last. It's a little bit too hot too early. And there, as we all know, every team is going to go through a period where there's going to be a lull and there's going to be a little bit of down, and they haven't had that yet, and it's going to happen. And if it happens right before the playoffs start, that's exactly what you don't want to have happen as a team heading into the playoffs. And I think that's why one of the things I've been thinking about is that I think that's one of the things that Joe seems to be so happy about, and I kind of understand it, is that if he was like 51-10 right now, I think he would be more worried than he is being 43-18. I think this is kind of where he wanted to be. They haven't peaked by any means. We all, everyone's talking about, it's not the same team as last year. It's not the same team as last year, and it's not. But when they go into the playoffs, I got a feeling they're going to be the same team as last year, and that's what everybody in the league is afraid of. Because right now the Celtics seem to be a little bit vulnerable, but I think they're the way that he designs the way that he sets the team up for success is he lets them fail here and there. Not that he convinces them to fail, but he puts them in situations where they can. And when they do, it can be considered a failure, but it's also a learning process. And that's why he seems to get all excited about that, because every time they go through a tough period, they learn. The players learn what they need to do in order to avoid that. And now you can lose a game here and there. And of course, when you get into the playoffs, you don't want to drop any home games. And some of the things that are happening now, I think that they won't happen when they get to the playoffs. And those, the Cavaliers and the Thunder, I think that they're going to experience some of that. And I think it will happen when they get closer and closer to the playoffs.
Yeah, there is something to that they just haven't had that adversity as a team. And I do think like Joe was enjoying this December, January stretch that everybody else was freaking out about. And he maintains to this day that they played well during that stretch. He always cites they were a top 5 offense and a top 5 defense. And things just didn't work out for them. Like they lost some games they should have won, tough breaks, bad shooting. Like he didn't feel like they played bad during that 6-week period where they were a 500 team. I think fans were probably uninspired by the performance, but that's kind of where they landed, right where he landed on that. But I do think it's like all of a sudden they go down 0-2 in the first round of the playoffs. Like they haven't faced really any adversity either of those teams. So that's why they're on pace to have these historic regular seasons. So you don't want to criticize the fact they've been perfect so far, but it is kind of a unique situation. The only thing that makes me kind of believe in both of those teams is just if you look at the last few years, I think there are teams that have seemingly come out of nowhere, like the Nuggets, where nobody really believed that Nuggets team was going to make win the championship. Everybody kind of felt like, they were a really good regular season team. They had a really good player,
Jokic, though.
Yeah. I mean, they have
Jokic.
but nobody believes in them. I mean, you go back and look at what people were saying.
Maybe.
Nobody picked them to win that year.
Okay. Nobody picked them, but
nobody picked them.
Looking back, you can see the difference between the Denver Nuggets and the Cleveland Cavaliers. There's a big difference now that we know. I think.
I mean, they had the better player, but you could also say that this Cavs team, if you look at this Cavs team, like 1 through 6, 7, 8, this is one of the best teams we've seen, like just on paper, in a long time. Like I do think you have Donovan Mitchell, who's an elite player, who I think sometimes honestly gets a little bit underrated because I don't know, he just hasn't had as many big moments as other people. They just signed DeAndre Hunter. Well, they just traded for DeAndre Hunter. He had 32 last night. That's like a casual midseason acquisition. Darius Garland, Evan Mobley were both all-stars this year. Jared Allen was a defensive player of the year candidate a couple years ago. So Cavs just have a lot more depth than that Nuggets team had. And that Nuggets team never ended up facing like a great regular season, great playoff team, I didn't think. So that was part of it. But I don't know. I could see us all thinking like both of these teams, they haven't had that deep run yet. And therefore, like they don't have what it takes to win, or, they haven't dealt with enough adversity. But, SGA is 26, Donovan Mitchell's, I think, 26 too. Like the guys running the show there are not super young. It's just they have some younger castmates around them. Between those two teams,
don't get me wrong. I think that they're both great teams. I'm not discrediting their success and what they've done this year. They're great teams. I love watching them play. They're well coached, well disciplined. Play. Great basketball. I don't think that they can compete with the Celtics when it comes to the playoffs. I don't think they can get through the Celtics, either one of them. Yeah. And I think that one of the advantages that teams have is psychological. And I think that they know that the Celtics are kind of not playing their greatest basketball, and they're still, second in the East. And they know that sooner or later they're going to put it together, and they're probably sitting in the locker room saying, I hope they don't put it together against us, because if they do, there's no way we're going to get past them.
Yeah, this commenter says the Cavs have been playing their best basketball. There isn't another gear to turn up to for the playoffs. That's kind of true. Yeah, that's kind of what you're saying. So so we'll see how it pans out. I think the other teams that are in the mix, I mean, you talk about Jokic, the Nuggets are still one of the top records in the league. I think they're 5th right now. Obviously we saw them without Aaron Gordon yesterday, who I think is a huge difference maker for them. He kind of unlocks another level to Jokic's game. But even still, just from that game and just in general, do you view them as a real threat to get to the finals? I think a lot of people, because last year they didn't make the conference finals, a lot of people feel like they're kind of out of the mix, but they still have Jokic. Jamal Murray, I thought, looked pretty good yesterday. He's healthier than he's been in a while.
Yeah, he looked great in the second half, that's for sure.
Yeah.
He looked like the Jamal Murray that they were worried about in the first half, and the old Jamal Murray in the second half. So
yeah,
I think if he starts playing consistently the way that he did when they were on their championship season, they're definitely a competitive team that can definitely get to the finals. And I wouldn't want to meet them in the finals if I were the Celtics. However, I still think that the Celtics have an advantage. But the big advantage that they have over these other teams that we're talking about is they've already done it. And winning a championship and getting that monkey off your back is a big deal. And getting into those, getting into the playoffs and getting into the finals and having been there and succeeded is a huge psychological advantage over the other teams that have never been there before. You never know what SGA is going to do in the finals because he's never been there.
And he's never been there. I will say he's had some big moments, not in the Olympics this year, but I thought in FIBA facing the U.S. team, like, I know it's different, but bronze medal game, and he was like the best player on the floor. And so I know it's not the same as the NBA finals.
Big difference, though. The Olympics are a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, I know, but he was playing. I don't know. I don't think he's going to choke. Like he's been kind of the most.
I'm not saying he's going to choke, but teams are going to be preparing. Just think if they play against the Celtics, they're going to be practicing for 2 weeks, thinking about how they're going to stop him from doing what he wants to do. You don't have time to do that right now. You don't have time to focus on a player. You don't have to. But when you get to the playoffs, everything changes. That's why playoff basketball is different.
Yeah.
When you watch playoff basketball, what do they say when it's the most competitive game? I heard them talking about a game the other night. It was like, this is like playoff basketball. What does that mean? What is that? What's the definition of playoff basketball? It looks and feels different.
Yeah. And so we'll see. I mean, there was even a moment last year, a couple weeks ago, maybe last week, that the Timberwolves were playing the Thunder. The Thunder were up by like 15 with a few minutes to play, and they just started blitzing SGA. Like they literally double teamed him in half court, and he was not prepared for that in that moment. And they ended up losing the game. And it doesn't really matter because they're on pace for, it's not even going to be a question, the seeding. And I don't think they freaked out. But there was a thing of like, okay, we haven't seen him really get that look before. And it kind of came out of nowhere in the fourth quarter. And so, they didn't have time to adjust. But it is the question of like, does he have enough around him where if they do really overload on him, you don't have Derek White and Al Horford and Drew Holiday and guys that have been there before alongside you the way that Tatum has. Like he has much more unproven guys, a lot of talented players. And I still think like Chet and Isaiah Hardenstein is a guy I really believe in. And Jalen Williams just had an all-star season. He had 42 last night.
42 last night. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So we'll see. What about the Lakers before and then we'll have a quick ad break. But what do you
Lakers are I have no idea what they're going to be able to do or what's going to happen with that. I think that they're a mystery right now as to what they'll be able to do with the change with bringing Luka on board, and the whole dynamic of that team has completely changed. Everything about the Lakers right now is a bit different. I would be worried about I'm concerned about what they can do. I mean, they're a team that's that's filled with super talent. Luka just coming in there and being able to do everything that he's able to do with his passing, with his scoring, but he's still a defensive liability. So I think they're going to have a defensive problem. But offensively, they can go off and score a lot of points. If he starts getting himself, I think that right now, he's still not really in the rhythm of what he's used to doing. He's playing with different players. He's not able to do the things that he was doing when he was playing in Dallas. He doesn't have that super green light, I don't think yet, or at least he doesn't feel it. I mean, it's got to be tough for him that he's playing next to LeBron. I mean, he doesn't want to disregard LeBron as a player. That wouldn't be a good idea. So I think they're kind of finding themselves now. He's finding his way. But I think the thing that's really kind of interesting about it is that they could peak right at the right time, because right now they can be going through a learning curve, learning how to play together and make the mistakes that you make. But they have some time. There's like 20 something games left in the regular season. That's a lot of games to learn who you are and where your strengths are. So I would think that they're a formidable opponent for anybody. So watch out.
Yeah, and I do think the Luka defensive thing does worry you because there's no team really. I mean, I think the Celtics are kind of in a league of their own and how well they exploit bad defenders on the floor.
Yeah.
Like they have, it's almost to a fault, but like they have this compulsion to do that. And I think you see guys like Jaylen Brown thrives off of going at Jamal Murray, Darius Garland, and Luka is in that category. And the biggest mystery to me is that all of their defensive numbers since trading Anthony Davis have increased substantially, the Lakers. And it's one of those things, I don't know if it's like a little bit of luck or a little bit of whatever it is, but they have been an elite defensive team over these past 10 games. And it's a small sample, but you look at LeBron, who's older, not the defender that he once was, Luka, Austin Reeves, like you think to yourself, this is not going to be an elite defensive team. They don't really have a rim protector right now. Even still they have been. So they're a huge question mark. I agree.
Yeah, but you know what they say about defense though, is that if you want to play defense, if you want to become a good defensive player, you want to work at playing defense, you can play defense. I mean, I know that doesn't go for everybody on the court, but I think Luka has heard so much about his defense over the last year, and then all of what happened with his trade and how much that must have hurt his reputation and his ego in particular. I think that we talked about this. He's got a real chip on his shoulder now, and he would love to shut everybody's mouths by not only leading this team into the playoffs and possibly a playoff championship type run, but also show that he can play defense, because he can play defense if he really wants to. I don't believe that a guy with his physical ability just can't possibly play defense in the NBA. He can. he just doesn't. All these videos and all these things that they show is when he just wasn't focusing on defense. He just was focusing on arguing with the referees or getting pissed off about something that happened 3 minutes ago down on when he was on offense. But that's not who I think he wants to end up being. And I think that this rung his bell when they traded him. And when he was sitting by himself in his room thinking about, like, how did this happen? I think one of the things that he probably came to realize is that him not giving 100% effort on defense, or at least 90, got him sent away. And now he's got a chance to build his reputation back up again as at least a decent defensive player. So I think that he's gonna play defense. I'm not a big Luka fan at all, but I do believe that he can do a lot better than what he's done, and he can help them on the defensive end as well. He doesn't need to be a defensive liability.
Awesome. Okay, we're just going to hear from our friends over at PrizePicks quick. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states, including California, Texas, Georgia, and Florida. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select players' projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. This week on PrizePicks, I'm looking at the basketball board and I'm selecting Jason Tatum for more than 29 points and Anthony Edwards for more than 25 points. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Awesome. So we'll see kind of what happens here in the last couple of weeks. I think this is kind of the home stretch. Right now, it's Cavs, big 7.5 game gap, Celtics, and it's Thunder in the West. I think something similar to that, Lakers, and then right behind the Lakers are the Nuggets. The Nuggets were the number 2 seed until yesterday. So those were kind of the top seeds. Number 3 in the East is New York. I haven't seen anything out of the Knicks this year that makes me think that team can come out of the East. So I'm going to just say I'd be very surprised. Obviously, anything can happen. Nobody thought the Mavs were going to win the West last year. They were the 5th seed. They were on and off all year. But right now, it feels to me like it's between the Celtics and the Cavs to come out of the East, just based on what we've seen so far. This is an interesting point. I honestly haven't watched enough Lakers games to have a take on this, but this person says that they used to just funnel people to Anthony Davis, and now with him gone, there's like a little bit more pride in their individual defense, which I do kind of wonder the validity to that and obviously Jared Vanderbilt's been back too, which is a big part of it. They have Dorian Finney-Smith. Like there are other wings that are better defenders that they've been throwing in the mix, but I just would have thought that just the loss of a guy like him, like I wonder how much of it is they know the wings, the guards, they know that they can't just send guys to the rim because they don't have a rim protector. They literally have Jackson Hayes right now has been starting games and playing significant minutes. No. So I wonder how much of it is that too, in a weird way, that there's like a level of individual pride too.
The NBA is an offensive oriented basketball league now. There's no way around it. So if you can get a great offensive player for a great defensive player, you're going to go with the offensive player most of the time, and the offensive player is going to make a bigger difference than I don't think Anthony Davis is going to turn around the Mavericks because he's a defensive force. I don't think that's going to happen. But Luka could turn the Lakers into a championship caliber team. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. And right now, he's not shooting well. LeBron has been the best player on that team. There's this running joke now I've seen, like, is LeBron ever going to be the second best player on his team? Because no matter who they've partnered him with, they put him with Dwayne Wade, they put him with Anthony Davis, they put him with Kyrie. It's like he's just, and you would have thought this is the one time he's like 40 and Luka, an MVP candidate, is on his team and he's still the best player on his team. So
I don't think anybody wants to be the better player on the team when they're playing with LeBron. I think you're almost afraid to take that spot.
Yeah, maybe.
It's not made for anybody in this decade.
So there are a bunch of games in the home stretch here that I think people are gonna not be super excited about, or somewhat more boring games. Philadelphia comes to Boston next week. Joel Embiid shut down for the season. Paul George has struggled. They've just had a nightmare year. Like the biggest highlights for them was Jared McCain, who was going to be Rookie of the Year, and then he hurt his knee. Yeah. Same meniscus injury, which I believe, I have this theory, and actually I didn't realize this, but John Zanis, who we do the Garden Report with, he agrees with me that it feels like meniscus tears are the worst injury for NBA players because it always feels like it comes back. They come back quick, and then it's like a long-term thing. Whereas more serious injuries like ACL tears, like you very rarely see people have. Obviously, Kawhi is an exception, but Kawhi also had meniscus stuff. So I don't know.
It's an area that causes continual pain even after surgery. I know that. I know guys that have had it. There's a lot of discomfort even when it's successful, and discomfort in the knee is not a good thing when you're a basketball player. That can really inhibit so much of your game. It's a killer. So it's too bad.
Yeah, so we'll see, obviously hope for health for that group, but I picked the 76ers as the biggest threat to the Celtics in the East before the season started, and it definitely, I hope it's my worst take of all time. I hope I don't have a worst take moving forward, but I don't know. I was just like, Tyrese Maxey's a guy I believe in. I was like, he's going to take another leap. He's young. Yeah. They just got Paul George. That's an upgrade from Tobias Harris. Joel Embiid, like he's recovered. He's going to take his time.
I don't know. It's not a winning combination.
It didn't work. And the other thing that I realized is that the guys they put around them are guys that individually have been able to put up stats, like a Kelly Oubre type, but they're not winning players. They've never really been in winning situations. They don't really have like good feel for the game. So in hindsight,
they need to bring in. They need to bring in players not with big statistics and big names. They need to bring in players that have won, that can change the culture of that locker room. I mean, that doesn't take you don't need to be an expert on this one. I just understand how a head office, front office of an NBA team can make the mistakes that they've made. It's just unbelievable. And that's why the Celtics are the Celtics and the Sixers are not the Celtics, because the Sixers, the Celtics just have an innate ability to make good decisions. And it's fantastic that what they're able to do is sustain a team year after year and players like what they've done. So
yeah. So that team, they come to town. I don't think people are going to get too excited about that. The Blazers come to town. I saw somebody say Rob Williams is coming to Boston Wednesday. He will be in the building, but he has now missed 6 consecutive games with a knee injury. So another guy that has just struggled to stay healthy since he was traded. Marcus Smart is another who is in DC now. Still so weird kind of how his career has taken turns since he got traded. Malcolm Brogdon's also missed significant time. So even though right now it's ironic to say because Porzingis and Drew Holiday have both been out, and Porzingis obviously last year missed most of the playoffs, like it just seems like the guys on that trade were never able to stay healthy. I would have loved to see Robert Williams join a contender and be good, and Marcus Smart compete, but they're not in good situations. And Rob Williams will be in Boston again as he was last year, but he will not play, unfortunately. Later next week, we also have 2 former Celtics returning. I'm personally excited to see. I don't know how much regular people care, but Svi Mykhailiuk and Jaden Springer are both in Utah, and Svi's going to get his championship ring. He is the only Celtics player that is currently in the NBA on a different team that hasn't gotten his ring. So he's going to get, that's like, usually after a championship year, you have all year, you have the players coming in, getting their rings.
It was the same team.
Right. So everybody came back.
The same team. Yeah. Cool.
So Svi's going to get his, and I didn't even realize this, but that's where Jaden just signed a 3-year deal yesterday. I don't know if people saw this. I'm a huge Jaden Springer fan. Everybody knows this. I almost feel like I'm now just believing in him because I want to be right, but I really do like his game. And I think that it's just too bad that right now, just the way the NBA is, like you have to be a 2-way player. You can't, or you have to be an offensive player. You can't be just a defensive player.
But it worked out good for him. It worked out better for him than if he stayed here.
Well, really we'll see. Yeah, we'll see if it works.
I think he'll get more of an opportunity there. He'll be able to express himself more. He'll get more time on the court, and he's a basketball player. He wants to be on the court. He doesn't want to be sitting with a Celtics uniform at the end of the bench. He wants to be on the court.
No, I agree.
So it worked out.
And that's why,
he's probably thankful that they traded him or they waived him, and it all worked out.
I agree. And I think it's a good situation. Honestly, after he got traded to Houston, I thought, okay, he fits there. They're defensive minded, but they are really deep. Like they have a lot of young talent. I was like, I don't know if he's going to see minutes there. And then he gets waived. And then I was like, oh shoot, like he might just be out of the league, because you see like O'Shea Brissett's still in the G League, like not a guy in the NBA. He was playing in the playoffs last year for Boston. So it's like this, you can just be out of the league. And so I was worried that he was going to be in that group, but instead he gets an opportunity via Danny Ainge, who has been very nice to former Celtics players. I don't know exactly why, but Isaiah Thomas is currently in the G League. He signed Svi. Svi is averaging, as someone here says, he's averaging a career high 9.8 points per game.
Wow.
So Svi's been getting minutes. He doesn't play every game, so you think he's played in about half of the games this season. But when he's played, he's gotten substantial opportunities. And Jaden has also he's appeared in 5 games so far. He got like 20 minutes last night. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, just another game coming up. And then the 2 big games coming up in this home stretch is the Thunder and the Lakers. That's the 2 chances we're going to get to see potential finals matchups. And cool. I think both the Garden will be rocking, I'm sure, for both of those games.
I'm sure will.
Last thing I just wanted to touch on, because it feels unfair to do an episode right now and not even mention Al Horford. Tom here mentions that Al Horford was a decade into his career when Embiid started his. We're seeing Al still play at this extremely high level. The question that I have for you is, I was kind of fascinated by Al's game last night because with 30 seconds into the game, I was thinking to myself, the last time I saw this, and this is an exaggeration, but this is how I felt in the moment, this looks like Al Horford when he was on the Hawks. He was back to the basket, driving to the basket, post-ups, like intercepting passes on the break. At one point, he started picking up Jokic at half court and just pressuring him. Like, there's a certain, like, obviously there have been the games where Al's just his shots on and he hit 6 threes, but I don't remember the last time I've seen him like that, where he just literally looked 12 years younger than how he sometimes looks, And so my question to you is, what is that? Like, what is that we watch? Joe said some nights you can just tell he has it. Yeah. And this was one of those nights. And I asked Derek and I asked Jalen, like, what was this tonight? And Derek said, whenever he saves a ball from out of bounds, it's going to be one of those games. Yeah. Like when he's diving out and you have that moment.
I'll tell you what I believe that it is that when you get to be, he's 38, right?
Yeah.
So when you get to be 38, I actually can remember when I was 38 and playing basketball. And I think that truly what it is that there are certain nights when he walks out on the court and he feels different. And I don't know if it's a rest thing or it's some kind of algorithms that your body just is ready on certain times of the night, or it's the time of the game. What time was the game yesterday?
1 p.m.
1 p.m. So it's a 1 p.m. game as opposed to possibly an 8:30 game on the West Coast. All those things can have an effect on your body at any age, but particularly when you're getting up there, 38. So I can just say that he probably, if you asked him, did you feel like good during warmups? He might not want to tell anybody, but I would say that in his heart of hearts, he knows that he felt different before that game. He probably knew he was going to have a big game, or at least he was going to have an exceptional game. And it just felt different. And, it doesn't happen every night. It happens, unfortunately less and less as we grow. But he did look, and he probably felt like he was 28 last night. And I saw the same thing that you saw. He was very quick. He was running down the court. He was beating guys down the court. He was picking guards up at times on fast breaks when there was a couple of broken plays. He was picking people up, and they didn't get by him, by the way. Just a lot of stuff that I was watching the same thing. His foot speed was very, very quick, especially for a big guy and especially for a big guy that age. So it was just one of those nights that it's one of those nights that when he probably ended, he probably thought to himself, wow, that was how much fun that was. You talk about joy of playing basketball. That was a joyful night for him for sure.
And this is the point here. I think this is 100% true. When you look at his best games over the past few years, they're literally never against some random post player, against some random losing team. He doesn't have big games against the Toronto Raptors. He just doesn't. Yeah. The big games are against Giannis. They're against the Cavs. They're in big moments. Like, it's almost like he knows he has to kind of conserve himself, and he can't be bothered to do this in a game versus like a lottery team. I don't think he ever doesn't play hard. I think he always plays hard, but there's an extra gear psychologically that he can get to.
He digs deep. He digs deep when you see those guys, and he thinks to himself, I used to be that guy. He used to be the Giannis of the league. There was a time. There was.
Yeah, I don't know if he was ever Giannis, but he was an all-star.
He was a big. I remember everybody wanted him. I remember when he was going for a max contract, and he was traveling around with his dad, and he could have played anywhere he wanted to play, and they would have paid him whatever he wanted. That was when it wasn't happening as frequently as it does now, I think. So he was big. He was a big time player, and everybody wanted him. And now he's a big time player. He doesn't have the same status, but when he goes up against those guys, he's like, all right, let's see what I can do against these guys. And I think he digs down deep, and he takes a lot of pride in playing against those players, and he seems to always be successful. You're right.
Yeah, and I do think there's an element of like he knows these players. He's pretty familiar with some of these, and he studied their game, and he just knows their tendencies. And maybe he doesn't put that same level of detail against a random post player he's not going to see in the playoffs because the guy's on a losing
And by
team.
the way, one of the biggest things in his whole outlook on the game right now, and I'm for sure of this, is he's literally got to be one of the happiest guys in the world. They ended up back on the Celtics, and he's back on this team with these kind of guys and this kind of program and these fans who love him and his family and everything else. I mean, it's like a picture perfect kind of twilight of someone's career, and that gives you a lot of inspiration. It gives you a lot of extra energy when you're going into these games. He's a happy guy. Again, the joy of basketball is written all over him. Every time I see him, he looks like he's like just so thankful that this is the way it all played out, because it doesn't always play out this way. It doesn't. Guys end up being on teams that are bad and at markets that nobody cares anymore, and and that's how they fade out of the NBA. It happens to a lot of guys.
Yeah.
And it's not going to happen.
We're seeing it right now. Yeah, we're seeing it with guys right now where it's like,
it happens, a lot,
especially when they get older. I think like you have to be in the right situation when you're older.
I mean, look at a guy like Paul George. Look at the way his career is going right now. There was a time when Paul George was he could have picked and choose any place he wanted to go, and everybody would have killed to get him. And now it's like everybody's like the word is out. Like, what's the big deal, really? And he is a great player, but it doesn't always work out the way you think it's going to work out with careers. Careers are a very tricky thing. And you make one wrong move, you lose an opportunity, or you have an injury or something. It doesn't always work out. He knows that. He's seen so many guys go through the NBA, and nobody even knows where they are anymore. And there he is, still like he's like the king of Boston, and he deserves it, and everybody loves him. And it's just it's like a fairy tale in a way. And I think he recognizes that.
And he's on an expiring. This is the last year of his 2-year extension. I think everybody expected that when he signed that extension, that they were going to, that was going to be when he retired. A lot of people thought he was going to retire if they won earlier than that. And people thought he was going to retire last year, which I genuinely think might be one of the most unsubstantiated rumors in recent history, because I've talked to Al about this. I've talked to his mom about this, and it's like, nobody knows where that came from. I don't think he even considered retiring. His mom told me the other day, and I have a big story on this coming out, but his mom told me the other day that literally a week and a half after they won the championship, he was back to his daily workout routine, like training with his personal trainer. So I would imagine he resigns.
Why would he retire?
Yeah, I don't know. People just think,
why?
I think it's just one of those things where just because he's like at the age where most people do, but there's no real reason to. And he's healthy.
I think he's taking the Tom Brady approach, that he's going to retire when he sucks, and that he's far from not being a really good player. So I don't see any reason. He'll play maybe a lesser role on the Celtics, play less minutes, whatever. But he's so good. It makes no sense for him to stop, as long as he's healthy and he's not out there suffering, which he clearly is not right now. He's got another four years, I would say.
Well, we'll see. We'll wrap up here. Thanks so much for joining. Thanks, everybody, for your engagement and comments and questions and things. We'll have another one of these soon. More coverage coming to Wednesday after the Celtics face the Blazers. We'll have some post-game coverage from that. You can find the rest. You can subscribe on CLNS Media and on my YouTube channel, You Got Boston. Thanks so much, and have a good one.